there was a kid that when I used to go to the park and like play basketball, he used to call me the craziest names. You know, like the craziest racist names. But like I said, I was different, man. I didn't take offense to it because I never heard it. But to hear them say it, I'm like, damn, you know. And every day he used to come to the park and do it and just like kind of like try to tease me and pick on me, but I just ignored him. But I used to always ask him if he wanted to play ball with me. And I remember one day he was like, yo, why do you keep asking me to play ball? And every day I come over here and like talk shit to you.
Wow.
I'm like, because why you keep coming to the park then if you don't want to play? And honestly, man, me and him became great friends.
Wow.
He went from hating me because of the color of my skin to we hung out every day.
How would you describe yourself today?
Wow. A lot further than where I came from. I'll tell you that. A lot more healthier, a lot more clear-headed, a lot more humble, a lot more open and understanding, and still growing. Still growing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How would you identify yourself? Like in terms of your, let's say, meet someone in an elevator, so to speak. What would you say?
That's actually a great question. How would I introduce myself? Well, first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name's Shy. And from there, honestly, it's an open book. It's an open book, you know. I feel based off the interaction depends on what part of myself I would actually share, you know. Sometimes I'll be the quietest one in the room, which is odd because my name is Shy, so a lot of it actually works with me because I'm like usually the guy in the group that's the quietest. But if it's a conversation that's worth having, I'm usually the loudest, you know.
Yeah, no, I got that sense from you the moment we met. I think I was there by myself actually it was my first night at Soho House, and you and a couple of your friends were there, and I bought your shot, and we hit it off. And one way I would sort of describe the way my first interactions with you are sort of like speak softly, carry a big stick kind of thing. Like you're just, as you said, humble but also confident, confident but also kind but also caring and just like all around great person. So that was my impression, and I think the way to maybe orient what brought you to LA might be to say, like, what do you do here?
Music, entertainment business, and a vast of other things, but primarily music, I would say, with the forefront. Yeah. And
is on the music side of things, is that primarily as a performer, as a producer, or as some different elements in the music scene?
Many hats. First and foremost, artist, songwriter. But true passion, just the business. I love the business. So my hands is always in every avenue of music. If it's in front of the camera, behind the camera, songwriting, co-producing, arranging, A&Ring, co-managing, just all around hustling music, honestly. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. And so maybe before we go too much further about where you're at today, let's rewind the tapes a bit if you're up for that.
Yeah, for sure.
So where are you from, and what was growing up like for you?
I'm from the south side of Chicago. Growing up, wow. Chicago was interesting, man. It was interesting. Chicago was a lot different today than how it was when I grew up. Last time I was home, I went through a lot of the areas that I grew up in, and it came a long way. I wish it was like that when I grew up, but unfortunately, it was a journey. It was a life lesson. I don't regret any of it, honestly. It showed me a lot. It taught me a lot, and I feel that's what helped shape me today. Very rough, single mother. It was 5 of us. And we always figured out a way. We always figured out a way. I would say that's what it was like. We never quit. We always figured it out. Yeah.
Would you be up for sort of describing in however much detail you want what your kind of, south side of Chicago, what that was like in terms of maybe the community, the family elements you mentioned,
Yeah.
single mother, but would love to learn more about the dynamics in play. So, are you, like, you have siblings, or
Hmm.
did you have like family, extended family sort of nearby, and give us a sense of like what that kind of broader home context looked like for you growing up.
Oh yeah, of course. So we lived on the south side of Chicago, and then we had our west side of Chicago family members, which was more of like the upper class. You know, they were lawyers, FBI agents,
Mm-hmm.
and then the south side was a lot more because we grew up in the projects. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so it was actually a lot more community on the south side than it was when we went to the west side. You know, because all you had was family. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so it was five of us. Um, I'm the second oldest out of the five, and my great grandmother, she had a home on the south side, so that was like the meetup spot for everyone in the family.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone in the family, damn near probably stayed there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
from my aunties, uncles,
Mm-hmm.
cousins. So it's kind of like a tradition almost. If things ever got hard, it's like that was like the ultimate place. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Where it was home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's home away from home always. So it kind of feels like I always had two homes growing up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah, family was around. Family was around. Family was also distant as well, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were around, but looking back now, I wish that a lot more of the advantages of having them around were seized a lot more versus like now. Sometimes now I feel like everyone's a lot more distant, but looking back, it's like I had a lot more time to spend with my uncles
Mm-hmm.
than I do now. But when I think about it, it's like, why didn't I? You know. But overall, we made it work. You know, I wouldn't say we was the closest, but we were very, very close.
What would you say to, or what would you answer to this question? Why didn't you?
I have no idea.
Okay, wasn't sure if that would
Yeah,
be.
yeah, living life, man.
Yeah.
Just caught up in a moment and not really understanding life changes. You know, like when you're young and you feel everything's gonna stay the same, you don't really take advantage of the moments in the time.
Mm.
You know, you just kind of brush them off, like I'll do it tomorrow. I'll
Mm.
do it tomorrow. But then sometimes you realize tomorrow is different for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not always promised. So
Mm.
yeah, I really don't know why.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's totally valid. I
yeah,
wouldn't know the answer for
yeah.
that kind of question either. I don't think. Would you mind sharing a little bit, because I think one of the um, there's so many amazing things about you and your story that I think will be wonderful for the world to hear, really, because there's a lot of maybe people coming of age in Southside Chicago and listen to a story like yours, and they're going to be inspired by
Yeah.
what you've done with your life and the man that you've become. So we're definitely going to get to where you're at now, and that story will get told. But could you share a little bit about what growing up in the projects was like?
Rough. It was rough. You know, we grew up what they'll call like the low end. You know, so a lot of the project buildings, like the front of the building was gated.
Mm.
You know, so you had gates that kind of divided you from actually falling over it. So sometimes at moments like now, when I see like old pictures of the building, it does look like cages, damn near almost. You
Mm.
know, rent was like cheap in the projects then. If I remember correctly, I wasn't paying rent then, but I'm sure it was like low as like $19, $26, because majority of the families that were in them like were on like housing programs and different things of that sort. So um, it was interesting. A lot of gang violence. Obviously, a lot of drugs in the neighborhoods. Which I'll explain more detail later on. But as I grew older, I realized why it was like that. You know, then you just kind of thought it was the way of life. But
Mm.
then as you grow older and expand your knowledge and interest in certain things, you realize like a lot of those um, environments were built to be that way.
Mm.
You know, it was kind of programmed to be that way, almost like an experiment, you know. So we experienced everything. You know, a lot of death, unfortunately, to see as a kid. Um, um, and I always explain it like I was 8 going on 17.
Mm.
Like you had to grow up really fast. You had a lot of responsibility at a young age.
Mm.
You know, you had to really grow up fast.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. How would you describe your perspective at the time of being in that world, seeing the other side of town, which is, as you said, a bit wealthier, a bit more like white collar type jobs, lawyers and doctors, etc. Some of whom were in your family, but you're seeing that side of town, and then of course there are many other suburbs and whatnot of Chicago. Yeah. Had you seen enough at a young age to feel like something was not right, and you were kind of maybe even angry about it or resentful about it, or was it different? Could you maybe color in how you were thinking at the time about what you called an experiment, the project being an experiment, and it being very, very challenging for you and surely virtually everyone there that you grew up with.
Yeah.
But what was your perspective then, and how does it change now?
I would say so. Having family on the west side, right? The west side was just like the south side of Chicago. Let me clarify.
Okay.
The west side was just as you would call ghetto as the south side. But our family members on my mother's side just so happened to had it a little bit better. Still, you know, from where we're from, but you know, they were a sort of an inspiration because they was the ones, like I said, had those particular jobs and things of that sort. But for me, my curiosity always came from anytime I had a chance to travel, because most of the environment just felt like, okay, this is the cards we was dealt, so I'm just gonna accept it, take it for what it is. But I was just always curious, like this can't be it, you know. And anytime I try to have that conversation, people will look at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, you really believe that? Like, it don't get any better than this? And most people just figure, yeah. Wow. You know, it doesn't really get better than that. And traveling at a young age really helped a lot too. Once you actually get out of the environment and you experience other things and you come back and then you leave and you come back, you realize like, yo, I only experienced certain things in this environment, but not in this environment. So maybe if I just changed my environment, things would possibly change in my life. You know, it starts there. You know, it starts with your surroundings, like what you see, what you're inspired by, what you hear, who you look up to around you. And growing up on the south side, the people we looked up to at a young age wasn't really something you would glorify now, but it was kind of beauty in the madness at that point. You know, how you could be in the worst conditions but still figured out how to make the best of it, but at the expense of other lives, though. You know, when it came to like looking up to like the pimps and the drug dealers, unfortunately, because those are the only people we saw being successful at that time. You know, but leaving those environments kind of just sparked, even if it was just for a day, you know, it just sparked like it's much more than this. And it was always like a journey to find out what else is out there. So anytime I was faced with something, it was kind of looking like over the wall, like, no, I'm gonna get over that wall one day and it's gonna be a whole different world. So I would say that's the best way to explain it. Yeah. No, it was always that fight to get over that wall. Yeah.
So I was curious then, were there any like key moments growing up, maybe before you left, that were like, look, I can either take a left turn here or a right turn in terms of your life path, that you remember as being sort of pivotal?
Hell yeah, a lot. Like, yes, a lot of situations I ended up in, and still to this day I stopped questioning. But for sure it was God. You know, it was a lot of situations that didn't pan out for a lot of other people, and I'm like, I don't know why this situation didn't go as left. Some situations did, but I take them as lessons. You know, you can't always throw rocks and expect to get away. So I was always grateful for the times I was able to get away, and the times I wasn't was just kind of like, when are you going to stop repeating the same thing? You know, this is what can happen if you don't change it, you know. but a lot of situations, man. I'm trying to think of like one to narrow it down, but it was so many, man. Like to explain what it was like growing up in Chicago, like it's nuts.
Mm.
It's a movie,
Mm.
you know. It's a real life movie. I'll tell you one situation that happened outside of Chicago when I was young. It happened when I was able to like travel and experience other things that did shape, um, that helped shape the way I am today. So we used to go to this town. We damn near like lived there. One of my mom's friends, she moved to Fort Madison, Iowa,
Okay.
which was like this small ass town, and it wasn't a lot of black people at all. Like I'm talking about, to like when we came, most people they already know. I'm telling you, you guys are not from here. It was like one other black family there, and everyone knew who they were.
Wow.
Like it was that that small. But I called it my movie town because that was the first time I experienced like goth kids. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the baggy pants and like the
Janko
spiked hair.
jeans and the
Yeah, and the whole,
I don't know if that's goth, but I get you. Yeah,
the whole
it's
the
kind of
whole
like
town.
sometime in the '90s that was a big thing, right?
Yeah. Like the whole town went to the football games. They had one high school, they had one middle school. I got into like collecting like Pokemon cards.
Oh, that's right.
And
That's
everything.
incredible. I wish you brought them.
Going to this town, I made a lot of cool friends, you know, and it was a weird experience because, like I said, I was like damn near like the only black kid in town at the time, and I befriended some really really cool people. And I remember this one time, one of my home. It was weird because our friend group was like I was the token black kid. And then one of our homies, he lived in a trailer, right? Like a full-on trailer. His name was Rusty.
Okay.
Then we had our other friend whose mom was like damn near like a stripper somewhat, kind of like 8 Mile-ish like story.
Yeah, there you go.
And then we had our other friend, I actually don't recall his name, but his mom was like a drug dealer, right? Yeah, like selling like weed at the time. And we had a friend named Jeff, and he was like the rich kid out of the group. You know, they stayed on the hill in Fort Madison, Iowa. And it always reminded me of the cartoon South Park. Like it was so diverse, And I remember one time we was out hanging out in like Rusty. And keep in mind, these are all like white kids, right? And Rusty was just like the trailer park kid, like super rough, badass, just like rough didn't care. I remember we was going down the street. I remember it vividly, man. Like grandma's on the porch, knitting, families out, people outside mowing the front lawn, hella kids outside, and there was a police station right around the corner, like literally the block over. And we just walking down because Rusty had a bone to pick with this kid he went to school with. And so I'm like, hell yeah, come on, let's go. So we go, and it's like 15 kids probably out there. You know, they're playing like soccer in the front yard. When I tell you, like, parents is out on every porch, like outside.
Communities, is it like summertime kind of thing?
Yes. Like no denying that there was a million eyes around, right?
Okay.
And Rusty sees the kid from school that, you know, he had beef with. So he walks up to him. And, you know, they get to going back and forth, and they get to wrestling. Rusty used to wrestle.
Oh, wow.
So he put him in a little wrestling move, and slammed him to the ground. And for some reason, it was like this big 2x4 stick sitting right next, leaning like on a house. Wow. He grabs it and hits the kid with it. I guess he was a wrestling fan at the time because he like hit him, right? And so he ends up running. Keep in mind, when he did that, the kid started crying.
Yeah.
The parents is on the porch.
Watching the whole thing.
See the thing. The people across the street see everything. Right? They're running over. Hey, kids, stop. Me and my friend Mitch, Rusty runs, but me and my friend Mitch, we like, holy.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, cool, we'll leave. So we chilled around for a second because Rusty already ran. So maybe like for 4 minutes, we're just sitting there chilling.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, let's get out of here. So we started walking down the street just to leave. We didn't run anything. Rusty was long gone. And when we was running down, when we was walking down the street, a cop car turned the corner, right? And he started slowly creeping down the street. And he's like, hey, you boys go back down there. And we're like, we're just leaving. We don't have nothing to do with that. We didn't have anything to do with it. We came with the kid. Yeah. He was like, don't make me get out the car. So we walked back down there. I kid you not. The cop gets out the car. The kid's on the ground. They have to call like the ambulance because he's playing super hurt. He wasn't like, he was a really like, skinny kid. No. And the cop asks, who did this? Every person out there pointed to me. every person out there pointed to me.
Wow.
And that was the first time I experienced, like, holy shit. I used to always hear about racism, but that was the first time I actually ever experienced it.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it. In a moment where most people would have thought that, like, oh my gosh, I was like shocked, but not in a good way, but not in a bad way. Like, it didn't even feel real.
Wow.
I'm like, no way. You know, like, literally dead ass, like, yo, he did it. Even
not just the kids, the parents too?
The parents.
Wow.
Like the parents. And so we went to, they put me in a cop car. And at this point, I'm like crying because I'm like, what in the world? And
Yeah.
I'm like looking out the window crying to my friend Mitch because I'm like, yo, how is this possible?
Huh.
Like everyone seen
Yeah.
who did it. Even the kid who got hit knows who hit him. And they took me to the police station. And I'm in there and I'm like super crying. And so we had to call my mom. And so my mom called and the cop's just like blowing smoke. He's just like, oh yeah, you're going to juvenile, this, and that. And I'm like, yo, I did not do it. Like everyone, this, and that. And it was so crazy. My mom, she comes like an hour later. I don't think we had cell phones at the time. So someone had to get a hold of her. And she comes to the station and she's in there crying. And I'm crying. And we're like, yo, and I'm trying to tell like I did not do it. And I wouldn't say I snitched. I said, just call Mitch,
Okay.
and he'll tell you what happened.
Okay.
You know, just call Mitch, and he'll tell you what happened. And just pleading back and forth with the cop. The parents were saying they wanted to press charges, all this other stuff, right? And since I was a minor, they let me go, had to give us a court date and everything. And when I tell you it was one of the craziest experiences I was able to get out of, because Rusty had already left. Apparently, he was already leaving town.
Oh, wow.
He got word that what happened because he had left. He didn't know that happened. He actually called, then had his parents call because they didn't really give a.
Yeah.
They knew how Rusty was,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
And had to tell him like, no, my son did it.
They did.
Yeah, he confessed to it. Like, yo, that's so crazy. Like,
Wow. Yeah, because it's not like he told everyone to say it was
No.
you. He was on
No,
the road.
but this
And
was like-
he's your buddy.
yeah, it was like a couple days later. The reason being because it wasn't really cell phones back then. Everyone had house phones. So
Right.
I think about time it got around to Rusty because he probably like laid low or something. I still don't know where he went for those 2 days, but yeah, he had to call the police station and with his parents to tell
Turn
him
himself in.
like, yo, I did it. He didn't turn himself in.
He didn't.
No, they said, well, come turn yourself in. And he
said
was
no?
like, hell no. Like he was out of there. Yeah, he didn't care. Like he was real
Just like
like
shy out and
like he
you
was
know.
like Billy Badass.
Wow.
Like yeah, he didn't care. But that was the first time I experienced that. Like holy shit.
Wow.
And so from that moment, when I went back to Chicago, no one never really experienced that because the environment we came from, unfortunately, it was predominantly black. You know, we're in the project. So anyone that looked out of place, you always associated them with the police for some reason. And that was a part of why I feel like it was our program because not once we ever like we're taught in school like, hey, anytime you see these type of people like
Right.
that, the police, it felt out of place. And that was the first time when I went back to Chicago, like, yo, y'all have no idea. There's a whole world out there that's like completely different experience, but I never experienced it because I never left out of that environment at that time. And for me, what some would look at like, wow, that's so crazy for a kid to experience. I was like, I gotta see more.
Oh,
It's like
wow.
a whole adventure out there. I'm like, I
Wow.
never experienced that. You know, I might have heard of it like in movies or something like that and possibly in history class, but maybe it was strange why it was like, I wouldn't say I was intrigued by it, but I'm like, that's insane. Like it's a whole, and I just wanted to keep experiencing life because I was so limited from it. So that was the first time where I was like, yo, I got to get out of here. I got to move around any chance I get. If it's a field trip that can get me out the city, I want to go because there's a lot more out there I have to see and I have to learn. And being in Chicago, you'll be surprised that there was a lot of people on the South Side that then it didn't really make sense. But now that never even left the South Side. I'm talking about not even see downtown Chicago.
Wow.
And downtown Chicago is beautiful, you know, like that. Haven't even went that far. They just stayed stuck in that environment because they were so conditioned to it. And looking back now, that's why I call it a program because it's like, what made us think that way? Like, what made us believe this was the only thing we can have? And unfortunately, knowledge is key. you know, and information is power. So as you learn new things and you get to experience different things and understand things, you realize like, man, they really were making these environments like that, you know? And yeah, that's just one of like many, you know,
Yeah,
many that's
that's
like insane, you know?
I really appreciate you sharing that story.
Yeah.
'Cause these are the kind of stories that need to get told, right? It's like
Yeah.
there's nothing like just in real in real life, like getting getting the opportunity to just at a human level connect with people in all these different corners of society.
Yeah. That's important, man. It really is an agenda. And I think it doesn't stop with a color, because when you get so high up, the color doesn't matter. It's just power. You know, it's more like a fantasy of how much I can build or destroy. You know, I think you know, the Kanye song, "No One Man Should Have All That Power." I just feel like once you get so high up, you're experiencing life at a level that most won't get to experience. So at that point, I don't think they really care much about color. It's just if they don't like you, if it doesn't fit their agenda of what they need to do, I think just anyone's on the chopping board. You know, because the same experience I experienced in Chicago, I experienced in other cities with different races. It's just the POV was a lot different. It was like it was another small town in Iowa. Quick story that it was a kid that when I used to go to the park and like play basketball, he used to call me the craziest names. You know, like the craziest racist names. But like I said, I was different, man. I didn't take offense to it because I never heard it.
Wow.
Like I heard it.
Yeah.
But to hear them say it, I'm like, damn, you know? And every day he used to come to the park and do it and just like kind of like try to tease me and pick on me, but I just ignored him. But I used to always ask him if he wanted to play ball with me. And I remember one day he was like, yo, why do you keep asking me to play ball? And every day I come over here and like talk shit to you.
Wow.
I'm like, because why you keep coming to the park then if you don't want to play? And honestly, man, me and him became great friends.
Wow.
He went from hating me because of the color of my skin to we hung out every day. And when I tell you that when we used to have conversations of like, why? It's like, I don't know why. It's just what I saw. Even though he never really saw people like me, it was just what he was always taught. So at that point, that was an earlier lesson that I realized that it wasn't even about race. It's just what he was taught. It's no different from, I'll call it a theory, not to make it about race, but I call it a theory like growing up in the environment I grew up in was like the projects versus the suburbs, meaning that if you grew up in the suburbs and you had a dream to be an astronaut, you probably had a family around you that was like, hell yeah, I'll go buy you an astronaut suit, you know, I'll get you some astronaut books, you know, they'll support that dream and encourage you, even if they deep down felt like you will never be Neil Armstrong. They wouldn't tell you that. But in an environment that I grew up in, you say, man, I want to be an astronaut. It's like, hell no, go to school, get a book. That don't happen. That's not real. That's not possible. Like, you automatically shot down to believe you can't be bigger than what's around you.
Right.
You know, so I think it even started there, just the information of understanding that everything is possible. And I had to realize that when we spoke over the phone, when I said sometimes it's the blind leading the blind. You can't expect someone who don't believe in themselves to encourage you to be anything great, because they don't believe it can happen, because they might have had a dream or idea that got shot down. So when you ask them how great I can be, they'll probably say not really great. But there's only a reflection of themselves. So that made me resentful towards information and who I got it from, because I'm like, I have to first understand if you even believe in anything before I engage in the conversation with you. Because if you don't believe in anything, I can't expect you to give me any type of great advice, any type of real advice, anything that's actually genuine, gonna help me, because it's gonna come from a place of your fears and your failures and things, but it's not your fault. You know, so I realized that it just carries on of like your experiences, you know. So things that I experienced in my childhood, like with my family, for example, I was able to like let go a lot of things because I just had to accept, like, yo, I can't overlook what they might have went through that might have shaped their lives to treat others like this, and it's like a repeated cycle. So to go back to like the story of how I befriended the kid, it was like the same lesson of understanding, just with like colors. Like he didn't even know. He only went off what he was told and probably seen like the people around him, but he found himself being friends with someone that he was always told he shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then everyone wasn't like that though, because we went to, it was crazy. It was like I got into like BMX bike riding. I used to try to smoke like my first cigarette there, like I was in Greece, because they all like smoke cigarettes young, like 10 years old. And they're like, you want?
That's amazing.
I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll take one. And I used to like fake puff.
How
it
old
and try
were you?
to,
This is like teenager?
oh my God, I was young. Okay. I was super young.
Did you have the pegs on the back
10,
of the BMX?
11, 12, yeah.
Pegs?
Yeah, that age.
Buddies riding the back, buddies, maybe a girlfriend in the front.
Yeah.
Not.
and that was the first time I experienced like those type of things. I used to skateboard too.
Yeah.
Like nice.
Yeah, I believe
like,
it.
Yeah,
I
like
believe
nice. Like tuned in into Nintendo 64. And I remember we went on like this crazy journey. He was like, we're going to go to his older brother's girlfriend house, because he was going to meet his older brother. And I remember he told me, like, I never seen a skate park in my life at this point, right? Other than Tony Hawk's, right? Yep. And he was like, they got a skate park over there, whatever. I'm like, yo, we got to go. And I remember before we was going, he was like, yo, when you get over here, don't talk to no one. And I'm so excited to go. I'm like, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got over you, so I'll be cool. And he was like, no, I'm serious. Like, don't talk to no one. So we get on the BMX bikes, and we're just riding through like woods, creeks, hills. It was like an adventure, man. It was like crazy. And I remember going up this hill, and when I got to the top, it was like a whole entire neighborhood, and I just see like people like skateboarding and rollerblading. Like rollerblading was big, but like the going up on the ramps and stuff. That was the first time I ever saw that, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Like, that's Tony Hawk's in real life.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I was just so eager to get down the hill, so I kept going down, and it was full on, kind of similar to what I said with the neighborhood, like full on packed.
Okay.
Hella kids out there, adults, whatever, just full on packed, and I was like blown away. I've never seen this in my life. And I remember riding through the grass, and I said what up to a kid. He just looked at me. No one spoke. And at that point, it went dead silent out there. And I just remember, literally, I just remember someone snatching me. It happened so quick. I don't recall what happened to this day during that moment. I just recall someone snatching me. And then I fast forward to like Conscious sitting on his couch and just hearing people like yelling. And I'm sitting there, and like when it all came to vision, it was his older brother's girlfriend yelling at him like, why did you bring him over here? And she was cool. She was more like, she had experience. She you know, so she used to go down south, things. So her outlook on things was a lot different, but she understood her environment. And she had told me, she's like, I'm sorry, sweetie, but most people still think we're in the 1800s. Wow. So I literally, remember, there's no cell phones at this time. And I literally had to wait till her husband got off work. He was a truck driver. Got off work to take me home, because she feared that if I rode my bike back home, something would happen to me. Wow. Literally.
So
not
getting
by
snatched in this case was someone was saving you from...
Not by the kids. Like, she was afraid the adults...
Was she the one who actually somehow, like, maybe if you could share more about what the snatching part of it was.
Oh, it was her.
Literally like someone grabbed you?
No, it was her.
I was thinking you got kidnapped.
No. She ended up snatching me. But at that point, it happened so quick, because when I said what up and everything got quiet, it just like, wow. It was just like a moment where it just kind of like blacked out. And then like when I came back to understand what was going on, it was her. She had brought me in the house and literally had to wait. And we didn't have cell phones, so I couldn't tell my mom where I was. So I was gone for hours. You know, and I'm panicking, because I'm like, she don't know where I'm at right now.
Gonna be freaking out.
But she didn't want me to, we couldn't ride the bikes back home, because she knew, everyone knew that I was over there in that neighborhood. And she was afraid something would have happened to me, not by the kids, like the adults. So I had to wait till her husband came and when I went back, the police was at where my mom was, because she didn't know what happened to me.
She called the police.
Yeah, but then there was another example where I was like, holy shit, what did I just experience? It was just like, oh, I got to go back. Like, this is crazy.
Wow, because so that's funny you say that again, right?
Yeah,
like
because
you were kind of leaning into these.
I never experienced it. You hear the stories, but once you experience it, like I said, when I befriended a kid, I'm like, yo, they probably don't even get out of that environment to understand. They only going by what they're taught. And I learned that lesson through him, which helped me later on in life, that a lot of people, just like myself, in a particular environment, they're only going off of what they were shown or what they were taught. So when it came to racism, I never really cared much because I realized that in someone's book, it's still an agenda. It's someone's agenda to make people view others this way. It's in some, so I always looked at things like that. Like somewhere someone wanted to be this way. They probably don't care at all to look at it the way they want you to see it, but for some reason they want the outcome to be this. And that was like a very important lesson that that carried on with me in life.
Let's talk about then the decision to move out here to LA, and what happened leading up to that, and then what was the moment in time where you said, you know what, it's time to give this a go.
Yeah. It was actually an accident. I never really wanted to live here at first. I used to come visit every now and then back then, but to live here, I was so caught up in the music because at the time I had a song pop off on SoundCloud. I just started in a pivotal moment where like life started to like change, and I'm like, okay, now it's getting fun. I had this song go viral, which I didn't call it viral then, but now that went viral on SoundCloud, and then Pigeons and Planes had posted it and wrote like an article about me in Complex. And once that started taking it off, I started doing like a lot of different college tours, co-headlining with different artists. And things was fun, man. And it was at that point where my family started to see like, oh, wow, this is actually working. It wasn't just more than that. And that's where it started. And so from that point, fast forward, I was supposed to do this tour with Juicy J, right? We had got cool with his manager and everything like that. And then they like, man, I'm about to go on tour. Live Nation just booked me for like this 30-day tour. I want you to come on and open up for me. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm out. Life's about to be different. Like in my head, I'm like, I'm Jay-Z once this like tour's over. And so I saved up so much money at that time. I don't even remember what I was doing, but I just remember I saved up so much money because for this tour, in my mind, I had a whole game plan. I was a lot more, I'm still kind of organized now, but if I look back, I was probably a lot more organized like then. So I had this plan of like what I was going to do, I was like, okay, I'm going to get the merch. I'm going to do this. I'm going to have one of my homies on the road. I just had this whole plan of mapped out of how I was going to build something from nothing to continue to stay on the road after the tour was over. I was like, this is a opportunity to build a fan base, keep it going. So I saved up as much as I can. At that time, probably like $14,000, and I packed up everything I owned, at that time. And I'm like, I'm gone. And so during the weeks leading up to the tour, it was this new kid who just graduated from college. He just got the job at Live Nation. And I remember one day he called me. He was like, yo, what's up, man? We're just going over everything for the tour, and we're just trying to make sense of everything. And we see that Juicy team breaking you on, open up, and blah, blah, blah. And we're just trying to figure out, how that benefit us. And at this time, I don't think Live Nation was paying artists up front, but this is when they like started paying artists up front for the tour. So they had already paid Juicy J up front for the tour and Live Nation and recoup everything on the back end. So they're like, we see how we're going to benefit from him being on it, but we're trying to figure out, how do we benefit from you being on the tour and everything. And so it was just a conversation at first, and then the next conversation, it was like, okay, maybe we can get a percentage of merch. And I'm like, I'm independent at this time. I'm like, I'm not selling like tens of thousands of shirts at shows. I'm probably taking like 40, 50 shirts, selling those, having someone mail me some, reprint them while I'm on the road. Like, I was figuring it out. So I'm like, I can't give you a percentage of, like, this is what's allowing me to stay on the road. This is what's funding me staying on the road. And I'm like, I don't think that'll work. And we was talking, and he was kind of an asshole. So time was coming. It was probably like, I remember the tour was like May 14th. And like May 1st, probably he called me. It's like, yeah, what's up, man? I'm thinking like, I didn't know what to think actually, but I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I hope this is,
Asking for my bank information to
yeah,
send me a wire.
it
For
was,
my
it was exactly that. He was like, I don't think the tour is gonna work out, man.
wow.
We just can't really figure out, how to do it. It's just not gonna make sense financially for us. And I think with him, he was definitely kind of reaching because he was new, so he was trying to impress someone,
Right.
that I can handle the money over here,
Mm.
Live Nation. Um, and I was crushed, man. I
Mm.
was crushed. I damn near was crying,
Mm.
I believe, inside. But I was crushed. And one of my close friends, he was already living out here. He had just signed a publishing deal with BMG at the time. And I remember calling him like, man, bro, they said I can't go on a tour. And I'm like heated. He was like, man, you got to come to LA. Like, excluding that, not telling me to move there. He was just like hyped about him
Yep.
just getting signed and stuff like that. And I was like, I can't stay here. I already told everyone I'm leaving. Like, I can't look
Mm.
like a failure to
Yeah, yeah.
people that were looking
This
at me
train's
like
moving. I got to.
a sense of hope. So
Mm.
I'm like, I got to figure something out. So I got online, and during the times I used to come visit, it was like this club. I don't even. I don't like clubs, but for some reason I love this club. It's called
Okay.
like Supper Club. This is back when like
Oh,
LA
like,
was in
yeah,
its
yeah.
prime of like nightlife, and it was
Okay.
like this spot called Supper Club that I had one a couple of times when I visit.
Mm.
And I just put that address in because I didn't know the areas in LA.
Mm.
I just knew that spot, and I put that address in, and I was like, I'll move anywhere close to this because I know where this
Oh,
is,
wow.
And I ended up finding a spot in the Valley in Sherman Oaks, and within 2 weeks I just left. I didn't plan it. I just said I can't stay. I gotta go figure
Wow.
something out.
Incredible.
Yeah, like. So
I
I
love
told
that.
people like the tour got routed. Like, yeah, I got to make a stop here,
Oh
do some
my
stuff. I
goodness.
gave a story back then, but I couldn't tell them that I couldn't do the tour.
Mm.
I told like a few people, but I don't even think I told my mom at the time I couldn't do it.
So, do you think it was actually because? Do you think it was actually helpful to you in some ways that you had told people the thing you were going to do to make sure that you actually did it, or that you didn't want cake on your face in terms of saying I'm going to go do this thing and then that falling out and then you're like I can't not at least go somewhere.
Yeah.
And part of that was because you had told people and they had either bought into it or not, but at the same time there was a kind of a social aspect of that that message that you wanted to kind of make good on.
Yeah. I would say it was probably bad to tell people
Okay.
then what I had planned, but I didn't know then. It was just a sense of like you wanted people to understand like, yo, I'm trying.
Mm.
Like, I got this going on, you making it happen. It was a little slight bit of like cockiness,
Mm.
like, yeah, I'm about to go on this tour, Juicy J. But I think at the same time, it was still a beacon of like hope for others who already didn't believe it was possible. So even if I had to like stretch it a little bit and make
Mhm.
it a lot bigger than what it actually was, just so they could feel a little comfort of like, man, he got a chance. You know what I'm saying? I had to do what I had to do. But now, no, because then it was like when it doesn't work out, you're looking like, I knew you weren't gonna do it.
Right.
But I don't really regret it because I think if I didn't tell anyone, I wouldn't have felt the pressure to leave.
Mhm.
But since I had already told people and I didn't want them to look at me as a failure or look at it like I knew it wasn't gonna happen, I had to do something.
Yeah, I told you so.
So I just had to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
to leave. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the quote. I think it was originally Will Smith. I could be wrong, but he has the quote something like, "Those who think they can and those who think they can't are both usually right."
Yeah.
And so I think that speaks to the self-belief thing, where it's like no one's journey who does anything outside the box is without its its trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
So it's really about like when you get knocked down kind of on your ass, you're 2 weeks away from going on tour. Was it probably going to be a breakout? It would have been a breakout moment for your career, and that rug gets pulled out. And so
Yeah.
some people would pack up and go home and say, I guess it's not meant to be. But you're like, nah, like I'm still, the overarching dream was still there. And so it was
Yeah.
just a matter of like that path was no longer going to be the one. But I love how you frame all of that. And I love how you frame it in a way that is about inspiring, because that's a really wonderful thing to to have be part of your legacy, which is, you know, like who knows where that could go, right? Like someone listening to this from South Side Chicago is like, you know what, I could do it too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's talk about the artistic side of your life and your work, and you know, being. Would you describe yourself as a rapper or more kind of like a musician, artist? Like, do you use broader terms than? Because I know you do a number of things, and you also help make music for other people. So, what would be the way you describe yourself in as it relates to being an artist?
I would say an artist first and foremost, and then from the artistry, the songwriting. I was always songwriting, but songwriting for other artists came about. And what ended up happening is, so a quick story. I ended up getting a hold of, so Kanye was working on Life of Pablo, right?
And before we go into Kanye, the song that you mentioned went viral was, do you want to just say what it was, and then we can hook it up in the show? I tried to find it last night. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, they took it down.
They took it down?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the second song that went viral. The first song that got me like on a college tours was this other one. I'll send you the link to that one. But
you were on a college tour?
Yeah, I did hella college tours.
Okay, cool.
Like to the point, like I got some crazy college tours.
I believe it.
So the Life of Pablo came out. Been in LA. It's like you've been in a lot of studios, and everyone works with everyone. I remember. I'm not gonna say who, but I ended up getting a beat, and it's like, nah, that's one of Kanye's. I'm just like doing like some rearranging and stuff like that. I'm like, nah, this is mine now. So I end up getting a hold of it. I end up doing like this freestyle to it called Sorry Kanye. I had put it out, and I'm trying to recall exactly what moment or what time frame like everything changed. I remember putting it out, and one of my homies at the time, he was working with Hip Hop DX, and he had heard the song. He was like, "Is this really Kanye's beat? Like, can you prove it?" I was like, I mean, I don't know how to prove it. It's not out yet. But the crazy thing is that forums was really big back then. Like it's big now, but it was huge back then, like fan forums. And I remember dropping the song on SoundCloud, and I put it on some other stuff. Like I was putting music on like every site. I wanted it to be found like anywhere. And I remember putting it up, and for some reason, they started confusing me with Kanye's cousin that stole his laptop that he rapped about one time. Because I guess I was from Chicago too. So they're like, that's how he got the beat. And then it just so happened at that very moment, Kanye was doing a fashion show for, I forgot what line it was back then, but it was with Kim Kardashian. And he actually played a snippet of that beat.
Wow.
To confirm like that was his beat. So Hip Hop DX was like, yo, we're just gonna run the whole thing on it. Like this is crazy. And yeah, and so they end up doing like this whole like article about it, which like pushed the song crazy, and it just went nuts. Like it was on like every Kim Kardashian fan forum and everything. Yeah, but the whole like this one I realized bad press was actually good as well, because they thought I was Kanye's cousin who stole this.
Wow.
So that started spreading it like super crazy. Then it got to Kanye.
It did.
Yeah, then it got to Kanye. I remember.
Cease and desist.
Yeah, I remember getting an email from Universal. Wow. And then when I saw the email, I didn't know it was that. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, they were
Universal. Oh yeah. They was like literally. I probably still have the email. I have to go through because at the time I was using like Hotmail.
Yeah.
I don't use it no more. But I remember they was like, we don't know how you got the beat.
Wow.
But it's illegal. It's coming down.
Wow.
There was a cease and desist. Yeah, and it was CC'd in with
their lawyer.
Kanye's team. Yeah, the lawyer, Kanye's team and stuff like that. And Twitter was around, but I remember Kanye was like, man, I love this song. But
he said that?
We don't do that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. I love the song, but we don't do that. How you get that? You know, where you get that from? And the crazy thing is that now we're stuck in a tricky space, because at a moment where like it's going crazy, what people would call like a viral moment. Billboard wanted to interview me, Rolling Stone, back when like the publications was like a thing, the websites. And it was a tricky situation, because it was like, do you want to continue to run with it? And then I would have to say I jacked Kanye's beat.
Right.
Or do I kind of want to let it ride? And my homie who initially helped, his name J-Mo, he's from Chicago as well. He does like this, the silent disco wave. Cool. Like he's a big creator of that,
Yeah.
to do the silent disco, yeah. But he asked me like, man, do you want to run with it? And I was like, I don't know. What do you think? He was like, man, it's tricky because you'll end up beefing with Kanye.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to beef with
Yeah.
Kanye. You know,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
from Chicago too.
Right. Right.
And so I decided to let it go.
Mm.
Not push it, not do the other interviews to kind of like bash like, oh, I jacked this beat and stuff
Right.
like that. I kind of let it go, which looking back now, was it a smart idea? I don't know. Only because who knows, you know? He would have did it. Kanye would have ran with it. But
well, that's why you're
yeah.
you're a quiet leader in every respect, right? It's like that's a character thing, you know, because it didn't line up with the persona you wanted to be. You know, having a public facing identity that's not actually who you are is eventually kind of like doesn't work, right? Like we see that all the time. But if you don't have distance between the public part and who you are, then it's like my experience has been that's the surest way to kind of get the things that you want for your dreams, really. But
absolutely.
So I love that because that's a hard decision. It's sort of like,
but that's what launched the songwriting. So from that, I wouldn't say started, but that brought recognition to me being able to work with like artists like Flo Rida and like all these other cats. Is that when I did that, it was dope. That different A&R started reaching out like, man, you write for other artists and stuff like that. But my friend did, but I was like, no. But I used to ask him like, man, people ask me to write. He's like, bro, you should do it. It's an easier way in. Like, and I was like, yeah. So that ended up helping open some doors. So that was the gift in it. Even though I didn't fully run with like once the bomb went off, I kind of like let it die down. That enough people heard it to where they was like, yo, we got to get you in the room. So I was being invited to like different sessions and just working with like artists I grew up listening to overnight because of like that moment, you know.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? How can people get in touch with you in terms of, because you've got a lot of things going on. We didn't even get to the jet ski business, which was amazing. We'll have to have a follow up to get into that stuff. Yeah. But yeah, how can people get in touch with you and what would you like to promote?
Of course, social media at I am Shy City. Same thing on Instagram, Twitter. DM me. Just reach out. You know, I'm very open to conversation. Amazing. You know, just reach out. It starts there. You know, hit me up in a simple hi. That'll be a start. And what I would like to promote, I'm actually working on a clothing brand right now. I have this like crazy idea I've been sitting on for a while. And it's just for, I'm starting with, like I mentioned before, like the white space, because I'm like a 6'4", you know, like 280. And sometimes it's not as easy finding clothes in my size, you know. I'm not picky, but I'm very like particular when it comes to how I want things to fit and everything, because we all struggle with certain insecurities. And I was like, man, I know there's a lot of individuals my height, my size, that deal with this. Like I've talked to athletes who deal with that. Like, man, it's hard finding. So it's like, why not fill in a white space and create a line that's not primarily just for that? Because it's not really technically a big and tall. It's kind of more in a space of, it is available if you need it in this size. You know, there's a lot of clothing brands I come across and I'm like, I love this, but then they stop at a large. It's like, yo, if you would have went up another size or two, you would have had me as a customer. But sometimes I never really understood that. I wonder if they always just wanted like a particular style of individual to be seen in it. Like, why does it always stop at this?
Interesting point. I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, maybe it's not, but I always looked at it like
be.
that. Yeah, like, why does it stop
Having been
at
in
this size?
my last company had physical products, I will say, at some point you have to make decisions about which of the units are going to sell. Because like, let's say Shaq. I mean, what size shoe does Shaq wear? Like, was it 18 or something? Crazy? Whatever it is. So like, not that many people are buying 18.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
but
of course.
what you're talking about is different because you know a ton of people, and that have the same need, and I think that's a very good place to start.
It's a general sizing. Like, I only wear like XXL and a T, so I'm not like
you're
crazy with the size.
You're like
40, 42 in like jeans. So it's not like a super crazy like size. It's just a lot of them end up stopping, or it's very limited. That's the thing I run into mostly is if I want to grab a pair of jeans and I go to the mall and they're always sold out. And they be like, man, all our big sizes usually go quick because You know, there a lot of
All the big boys line
yeah, like
up,
when I go to like
open at 9
the
a.m.
Nordstroms in
Yeah.
Topanga Mall, they be like, man, the NFL players are just come in and
Is
grab
that
it because
right?
everyone's looking for something
Wow.
in their size. They don't want to have to pay a tailor to custom fit something to them. So it's
Mhm.
like as soon as it comes available, they usually got someone sitting it to the side. I'm like, what if there was just a line where you're getting the same looking style of your luxury brands?
Mm.
Because I mean, let's be honest. I did a lot of research on this going into my brand, like to even like make like a Gucci shirt, and I even figured out the manufacturers. Watched like this whole like segment on them doing like the designs for like Dior and stuff,
Mm.
and they're paying like $15, twenty
Oh yeah.
dollars to make those shirts,
Yeah.
and they're selling them for like
10x that or whatever it is.
yeah, like $900, 1,000, 1,200 for a
Yep.
T-shirt. So I think the reality of people understanding that you're really just buying a brand and the
Mhm.
material is not really. I can give you all of that
Yep.
feel and comfort and luxury, and still hold some value to my brand, of course, because
Mhm.
I want to price it at a point where. Um, it's affordable to those who's into like the grunge style, kind
Mhm.
of like vintage tees and
Mhm.
distressed denim jeans, but at the same time, make sure the sizing is available for anyone,
Mm.
you
Love that.
know. And I think that's just a white space where, I'm interested in filling.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
if anyone out there is in the fashion world and wants to, I don't know if you're looking for partners or collaborators, but or even just like connections in the supply chain world or whatever.
Oh, I need them, man. It's tough.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that getting in fashion. Like no one
Yeah,
wants to
it's
give you their sources.
so my sister-in-law is in fashion. She's coming to LA in a couple weeks, so I'll introduce you to her. She's been in that world for like 10, 15 years.
Yeah,
Does a lot of denim stuff. Actually, she'd be great to introduce you to.
that'd be dope.
She's really awesome.
That'd be real dope.
This has been so fun. Thank
Yeah,
you so much
yeah.
for your
Thank you.
time, and I really enjoyed the conversation. And I consider you a friend and a quiet leader through and through. So thank you, Shai.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.